Hey there, ENX team. If we haven't had the opportunity to meet yet, my name is Jamison Tate, and I currently serve as the lead data scientist here at ENXchange, as well as the site administrator for the Activu Software. I actually office here out of the Stillwater, Oklahoma location, also known as our IoT warehouse, but you will likely see me oftentimes down at the McKinney facility, working in our digital operations center, monitoring analytics, building layouts, or troubleshooting a software issue. My goal for this video is to have as many people on our team become proficient at utilizing the Activu software. As many of you know, the meat and potatoes here for our ENX platform is visualizing data. Activu is one of the more dynamic and grand ways of doing that. As a strategic partner, this software helps bring a whole new meaning of bringing our clients' data to life. So it makes it a very, very important thing to learn. It is also my intention to be able to build up as many boots on the ground, as I like to call it, there down at the McKinney site in order to help me with troubleshooting a software-hardware issue we may be facing. If you can imagine, it takes a lot of traveling back and forth if it's just me that knows the software. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right into the video. So our agenda for today is we're going to get a basic understanding of the Activu software, what it is, how it works. One thing I've also noticed going through training myself, working with the Activu system, working with other team members, is there's a lot of buzzwords that are in its own vernacular of the software. So I built what I would like to call an Activu Glossary to help understand what exactly it is I may be talking about if I ask you a question. The biggest thing I want you guys to get out of this video is understanding our system layout. It's changed quite a bit over the course even the last year that I've been here, but it's a very, very cool system, and we are utilizing it in ways that many other clients of Activu are not doing so. So I'm very excited to show you guys and give you a little bit more insight into what that looks like. Then lastly, we're going to do a start to finish demo. We're actually going to take some sources, we're going to place them into the Activu software, put them up on a wall. We'll actually do it right here on the Stillwater wall behind me, and build our own layout. So after this, you guys will be able to do this yourself. So moving on. Okay, so first and foremost, what is Activu? So I'll give you guys the Wikipedia version of what this is. So Activu is a cross-enterprise solution for sharing and visualizing information of any type on any device. So think about any piece of type of data, any type of source of information, we can push that out onto the Activu software to visualize, to help make decisions, and to move forward with maybe an insight that we want to give to a client. All these things fall under where you're going to push this information, whether it be a display wall, which we'll talk about, a workstation, so one of the actual laptops that we see somebody working on in the DOC, or the laptops that is, but with most being just the full grand system of a digital operations center. So how does it work though? Though on a more grandiose and complex scale, the Activu system is really no different than when we attach additional monitors to our laptop. So if we just plug it in, we want to extend our laptop screen to 3 different screens. We plug it into a docking station, and then it pushes it out to 3 different screens. The same thing is happening here. Each system has a desktop, basically, a computer sitting behind it, which we'll talk about, also known as a display node. And you simply attach multiple displays, sometimes 1, 2, 4, or even 8, which we utilize a lot on our system. And source of information, which are stored in a cloud database, this visibility cloud database, are pushed out from that computer onto those screens. And these sources can come from a variety of places. They can be a camera feed, they can be a video, a website, a graphic image, a streaming piece of media, whether it be a GIF or a moving image, or a network capture, which is really a cool thing. We can actually take one of the screens from our desktop and cast it up onto those screens. All these things are taken and they are stored and uploaded to our visibility cloud database, which is an AWS database, and then pushed out, whether it be to the client software, which is on our laptops, or into our digital operations center. So really a cool thing there. Let's move on to some buzzwords. So whenever I catch myself doing this all the time, I'm trying to explain Activu to somebody, and I'm just using words that I know, but maybe not everyone else does. So I wanted to cover a couple of these. So we'll just dive in directly into them. So you can see all the ones here. We'll dive in a little more in depth for each of them. First one, DOC, Digital Operations Center. This is located in Suite 200 of our McKinney facilities. We're going to be where our 4 main walls are going to sit, as well as our server rack. It is a secure system that we basically market as a secure facility for our clients' data. A display. This is the wall of TVs that content is on. This can be a wall of TVs. It can be one large LED wall. It can be a little bit of anything. This can be a 4x2, a 2x2, or a single display like the one you see directly behind me. We have 8 total displays on our system. 7 are in McKinney and 1 in Stillwater. The display node. This is the computer that drives the content on the wall. They are located either behind the screens or on the server rack in the server room in Suite 200. So the large sets of screens that we see in the DOC are run by these Dell Precision 7920s. These are built to sit and be housed in a server rack. Very, very powerful computers. The ones that, these are also known as small form factors. These are going to be the ones that are behind the TVs in the conference room in the McKinney facility, behind the 2 large Samsung TVs that are also in the conference room, and behind the screen that you see behind me. But these are those computers I was talking to you guys about that we attach displays to and extends those desktops out. Next, we have the server. So the server rack is basically the rack that each one of those display nodes is mounted on. Those 4 main ones that I was talking about, those Dell Precision 7920s for the DOC. A server is basically a device or set of programs that fulfill the requests made by the computers. So whenever I try to run a script on the Activu software, it goes to that display node and then pushes it back out. This is also, you can see that there's a laptop right here, which I'll talk about here in a little while. This is how we navigate to each desktop. So from this area right here, I'm able to go in and control each one of those walls that I want. This is where I have you guys go and I just restart the node. So if I need to reboot one of the systems, this is where I would do that. This is where I could also go and install software or uninstall software from each one of those computers. And this is also on the back of the server rack is where all of our fiber locations are located. So each one of the TVs that are in the server room are connected through a fiber connection. And those are all located on the back of this server rack. And this is located in Suite 200 of the McKinney facility. Just a note that I'll put in there, we got to be very careful with the server rack. One, if something kind of shuts down involuntarily, we can see some things happen with the software. Also, those fiber connections are incredibly sensitive. So you need to be very careful anytime you're working with or working around that server rack. A source. So you hear me say a lot about pushing sources. So basically what a source is any form of digital file that is wanted to be shared. This can be a graphic, a web source, a video, any kind of media, a camera, or a laptop screen. All of these sources, as you can see right here, each one of these pieces right here is a source. And you use sources to build a layout. So a layout is kind of, I would like to call it, if you're into kind of any kind of art or anything, as a storyboard. So anything we want to do with the ENX platform, we want to build a story. We want to tell a story with our client's data. A layout is one of the great ways of doing it. So it's basically a collection of sources. You can have up to 8 if we have a 4x2 screen, but I'm going to show you here in a little while, we can actually build a grid on our screen and we can put absolutely as many sources as we want, as long as the pixels are there to make it still look good. And lastly, we have a script, which you can see right here. A script is a coded command that pushes a layout to a screen. So you can kind of see here, I am pushing a layout to the McKinney conference room, and I'm going to push the ERCOT Market 1 layout to that display. So, and we don't really need to cover a ton about scripting. I will handle the majority of that, but if that is something you are interested in learning, please let me know and I will share that documentation with you. File structure, best known as the feature tab in the Activu software. So data, in the grand scheme of things, isn't meaningful unless it's structured. We can have a ton of data. We can have a ton of sources, a ton of layouts. But if we don't know how to get to those in a meaningful and easy manner, it doesn't really mean much to us. So we utilize this featured tab to structure, organize, and establish hierarchies in our Activu database. And I'll show you guys how to do this. So for instance, you can kind of see I can move from the RTO standpoint, and I can go down to ERCOT, and I can place all of my ERCOT stuff here. If I want to go down to utility, I could pick a state. From there, I could pick a cooperative. I can go, or transmission, distribution, whatever kind of cooperative I want to go to. And you can kind of build this hierarchy and drill down to get exactly the information that you can get basically immediately. So that's the file structure. Lastly is that visibility cloud, which is our cloud database that hosts all of our sources, layouts, displays, and all things Activu. As I said before, it runs on an AWS system. And this right here, inexchange.visibility.cloud, is basically that URL to get to that, basically that database right there. So that's what we would use to sign in to our desktop client. Okay, up next, I said one of the biggest things we need to get out of this training is understanding our system. So I put together this small little chart here to kind of understand where everything is, what everything is called, and kind of how we utilize it. So right here, I'll just start first with the Stillwater office because there's only one here. What you'll notice here is each one of these things in black italics is going to be the actual display. So that's the display name, and then we have the host name. And remote mouse, I will cover whenever I do my on-site training with each of you guys coming up soon. So here at the Stillwater office, we just have one display node, and it's called Stillwater Office. So pretty straightforward how to understand that. In Suite 100, so the main building down in McKinney, in our conference room, we actually have 3 displays. Many people probably didn't know that. We have the main one that we see here, the McKinney conference room, which is that 4x2 display. The ones we typically just use the Chromecast for, we can actually change that input, and that actually is an Activu screen. I believe it's on HDMI 2, so you can actually change that, and you'll probably see the ENX logo like the one you see behind me. But we can actually place sources and do anything, run layouts, run scripts on all of those screens as well. Then the big daddy of them all, our actual digital operations center, is where we see our main displays. We have 4 of them in there. We have the commercial wall, the utilities wall, the microgrid wall, and the DERM DMO wall. This is another way that we kind of, and you'll see that each one of these are labeled above with those signs. It's another way that we are able to actually kind of structure how we build those layouts. Each layout, each source is built to a display, which I'll show you guys here in a little bit. Lastly, we see DOC desktop and the Stillwater site admin desktop. This is the big 49-inch display, the curved display that you would see here, and then this would be my computer that I have right here at our office. In Suite 200, we do see that we do have a storage room, and we also have a server room. So that's where that server rack is located that I told you guys a little bit about. These host names right here, whenever we utilize the remote mouse software in order to actually get our mouse up on and control those screens, this is what you would look for in order to select and kind of know which wall that you're on. I changed the host names, changed the names of those computers so they'd be a little bit easier to navigate to, and kind of go from there. Lastly, we do have a touch PC that is in the conference room that has the desktop client installed on it, so you can actually run Activu from that PC there as well. And you can actually utilize the remote mouse for that one as well. Okay, moving on. The next one I want to talk about is the server rack. So this one is going to be incredibly important to pay attention to. Okay, so whenever I may be needing you guys to do some troubleshooting for me, this is where I'm most likely going to send you, is our server rack. This is the most recent picture of our server rack that I took this past week whenever I was down in McKinney. This is kind of a breakdown of everything that we see on the server rack. Main thing we need to check is our thermostat. It's located right here. It is the white piece right here on the rack itself. The server room needs to stay between 68 and 72. If it gets a little lower than that, that's a-okay. We just definitely do not want it to get hot in there. Each one of these computers has its own internal software that if it reaches an internal temperature of a certain threshold, it will shut down involuntarily, and it will mess up a lot of the configuration of our displays. Let's kind of take a tour of our server rack though. So up at the top, we kind of have a power supply, which we will be utilizing later on down the road just in case we start to lose power. Another big thing I want you guys to think about is this laptop here. If I have you guys get on this laptop to maybe install or uninstall some software, I will show you guys how to do this in our on-site training. But just for now, for your information, you can actually go on here, and if you want to kind of move from display to display or server to server. So if you want to go to, say, the utilities wall, I know that this is actually DNE. That's display node E is what that stands for. I can actually go in here and I can click Control-Alt-M and I can navigate to DNE, and it'll actually show one of the kind of the, I would say, the system manager desktop that actually allows us to see all of that information. And if you run into an issue where you have to actually log in, which you shouldn't, they're all auto login, this is going to be your login information. I'm going to place both this as well as this in a picture frame and hang it on the server rack gate here. Okay, that's the main thing about the network computer. We have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different servers sitting on the server rack. The SMA server is one of them that has some information that has nothing to do with the Activu system, but has some software that I utilize that I may have you guys use. That's where one of our 360 cameras is installed. Display node A, which is the commercial wall, that's right there. Display node E, which is the utilities wall. Display node F, which is the microgrid wall. And display node G, which is the DERM DMO wall. I placed each one of these because this is the power button. Okay, if I ever ask you guys, hey, I need you guys to go in and I need you to reboot display node A, you'll know that you'll be able to see it. It's the top one. You should see a label that says D and A on it, and the power button is on the top right. You can kind of see them down in here. But you just hold it down until the green light turns off, wait a little bit, maybe about 10-15 seconds, and then hold it back on, and then it should come back up. At this point, I should be on the phone with you. If not, watch the video, and you should be able to do it yourself. Okay, so that's kind of the overall, hey, let's learn a bunch of stuff all at one time. So let's go and kind of get into the fun stuff, which is actually building a layout. So we're going to utilize 3 different pieces of client software here. We're going to utilize the desktop client, which is how we actually build the layouts, where we can see all of the sources, we can see all of the displays, all of that kind of stuff. We're going to utilize the system admin clients, which is how we add sources, we test the network, or we preview content. And then lastly, I'm going to show you guys really quickly the capture client, where we can actually allow ourselves to screen share. So I'll actually put my laptop up onto the wall, here at the Stillwater office, and kind of go from there. So this is what we're going to build. We're going to take one of the charts from the ERCOT's site. We're going to take one of my Power BI dashboards that I built and place them on the wall. We're going to take the Activu website as well as a stock image of a digital operations center. We're going to take the ENX website. I'm also going to add my network capture on here as well. as well as I'm going to show you guys how to build an Activu widget. So we'll go ahead and we will jump out of here and we will go ahead and open our desktop client. I will send you guys a login that you guys can start using and mess around with. Whenever I send the link to this video, I'll send you guys a login. It'll be an ENX user login. You guys can also utilize the DOC admin username and password, which I'll send as well. So I'll move myself over here. So just kind of see everything. I'm not going to show absolutely everything that we have on the software here, but I do want to cover some of the basics that we're going to need. We're going to need sources here. So sources is where all of our information sits. So where each one of our, so if I go into OTech, we can kind of see, okay, so this is one of their Power BI dashboards. I can click on it and I can actually preview it. I can see what it looks like. I can look at each one of our displays. You can see all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 displays that we have. I named them so they're a little bit easier to navigate and know which one you're actually looking at. You can click on the display in order to see what is on it. So if I click on the commercial wall here, I can see that I've got a couple of the Insight Centers. I've got an Insight Center title, some of the Figma dashboards. If I actually click on the Stillwater office, I'll be able to see that the ENX logo is. So if I actually remove this, you should be able to see it behind me kind of go away. Okay. So this is what we're actually going to build our current layout on. Lastly is Tools and the Featured tab. So Tools is where we find all of our scripts. So if I build a script, which I can show you guys how to do at a later date, they'd be located here at the Tools. And then lastly, our Featured tab. This is where we'll be able to find that kind of structured hierarchy of data. So if there was something you wanted to actually run on this system, you'd actually be able to go here. You click on this Run deal. One thing I do ask you not to do is do not remove. I have to redo all of that work. But a lot of cool stuff here on the software. As I said, this is just kind of to get you guys acclimated, kind of how to utilize the software. But big thing is we're going to build our own layout. So I'm going to go ahead and X out of this. You can see that it still is right here on the side. I can minimize it. But now we're going to open up the system admin client. So this is where we're going to go to actually log in, and we're going to add sources in order to bring them into our system. So what you'll notice is as I build a source, we'll be able to see it, and I'll build it with a file structure to where we can actually see it here on the system, so in our sources. First thing I did want to cover, I forgot to cover it whenever we logged into the DOC desktop client. But the command router here is basically what we're trying to log into. It used to be we used to have all of our database just sitting on site, so it was just an IP address. Now, since it's sitting in the cloud, whenever you're logging in, you need to make sure that this is where your command router is sitting, or whatever it's trying to point to. So in exchange.visibility.cloud, I'll actually log out of desktop client here in a little bit, and I'll show you guys where you need to put that in order to log in correctly. So you place your username, your password. Authentication type is always going to be, excuse me, let me get that out of here. Authentication type is always going to be basic. So put in your password. We'll go ahead and jump on in here. So the system administration client, what we care about here is our sources. So we're going to go in and we're going to add different types of sources. So if I was to go in here and I wanted to look at graphics, I could go in and I could look at all of our different graphics that have actually been added to our database really over the course of the last few years. Same with any media that we put up, any network, so I can actually look at some of our networks here. So if I wanted to preview, say, our Stillwater location, or actually let's go ahead and preview our utilities wall. So this should have our RTO at a glance layout sitting on it. So it'll take it a second. So I can actually see in real time what is on that wall from my office. So I don't need to see, I don't have to have a camera in there. I can see what is up on that wall right now. This one's pretty cool because it does update every 1 minute. I can actually go in, I can toggle, and I can move things around in here if I want to. You can see my mouse kind of hovering around in there. So that's kind of how I'm able to control walls from my office here in Stillwater. So if you want to learn a little bit more about that, I'll probably cover some of that in the on-site training, but I do want to kind of make sure that is all good and you guys kind of understand that. Thank you, Dale, for expanding the disk space on things board. Anyways, let's go ahead and let's add our sources that we want. So I'm going to go in here. I've already got some stuff pulled up here on my Microsoft Edge here. So the first thing I want to grab is I want to grab the Activu site. So basically what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to whatever website I want. I'm going to grab the URL. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to come back here. I want to go to, it's a web source, so it's a www source. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do that. I'm going to add. So here's where it can get a little bit confusing. So this is how, the way that we name things is how we build the hierarchy of how we find it in our sources, okay? So I'm just going to call this demo, okay? So demo, I'm going to put a slash, okay? Activu website. Okay, so in our desktop client, whenever I create this, I should be able to find a tab that says demo. If I click on it, I should see it there that says Activu website, and then I'll be able to actually see the source. So I'll go here, click on activu.com. One of the cool things that you guys can actually do, so we always want to set our display resolution to 1920 by 1080. That's what the walls are configured to see. I'm going to set my web container here. I want to enable my web container. And the cool thing is I can actually go in and I can say how often I want this to refresh. So I'm going to refresh every 1 minute. If you don't want to do that, you can also add and refresh equals 1 right here. You can do that at the end of your URL. But since I did it in the web container, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to leave it the way that it is, and I'm just going to add this source. Okay, said added one source. So if I come down here, back to my desktop client, I should be able to see new source name Activu website was added. So if I go to my sources, I go to demo, I see that my Activu website is right here. All right, let's go ahead and add another one. So let's actually go in and we'll add our ENX website as well. I'll go ahead and fly through this one real quick. Since you guys already saw this, we won't change the web container to where it refreshes all the time, but we'll go ahead and just add this one. All right. We want to place a digital control center picture with the Activu website directly below it. So I'll go ahead and I'll just choose this one right here. I'll just save my image. I'm going to save it in my Activu Training folder under Demo, and I'm just going to call it DOC image. Okay. Since I got a graphic this time, I'm going to go over here to Graphics, and I'm going to click on Add. Okay, same thing, same naming convention. I'm going to do demo/DOC image. Okay, this gives me a file. I can give a description. I can say that this is a image of. I'm going to say that this is a stock image of DOC. Okay, I can give this. It asks for a file location. So basically, what I'll do is I'll come in. I want to point to that image from whatever file. It's sitting in my Activu Training in the demo folder. So I click on it. It brings up the full file path. I want to give it the display resolution I want. Once again, I want to always do it at 1920 by 1080 because that's the ratio that it is always wanting to be at. And I can change that on the desktop client if I want. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add this source as well. Okay. Since we are an IoT company, I figured we'd go ahead and we would grab an IoT device picture as well. So we'll go ahead and grab this image, the stock image. I'm going to save this image as IoT image. Same thing as before. Go in here to graphics, add, say DOC IoT image, say stock IoT image. Once my file path again, I go in, it's already, since I did the last one, it's already at the spot that I need it in the Activu Training folder, in the demo folder. I point to it, I change my resolution, 1920 by 1080, and I add that source as well. What else do we want? Okay, we want some ERCOT prices. So I built this ERCOT prices for 2021. I can actually take all of my Power BI dashboards and create them into web sources. So I can actually go in and I want to embed this report. This is just something, if you guys want me to create anything, I can actually put it onto a layout for you guys. So I can publish this to web. I can create that URL. And so basically it works just like a website. So it turns this dashboard into a website for me. So you can utilize it as the exact same way. I would come in, create it as a web source, do it the same thing, demo, then I'll say ERCOT prices 2021 dashboard. I'll put this in here. The cool thing about this as well is as data refreshes, maybe from our Azure functions or anything like that, I can actually set this to refresh so it'll also always be up to date. So all of our weather station stuff, if you see any of those dashboards up there, those will update every 15 minutes because I set it to basically ping that website every 15 minutes. Display resolution, as always, we want it to be 1920 by 1080. Just for fun, I'll make this refresh every 1 minute as well. It's static data, but it'll still refresh. We'll go ahead and add that source. What else do we want? We're going to grab the one of the ERCOT images. We'll go ahead and we'll just grab the supply and demand curve. So once again, I'm going to copy and paste this URL. Put in one more web source here, demo, ERCOT, supply and demand. This time I'm going to put the and refresh right here, equals 1. But just for redundancy, I'm going to put it there as well under our web container. Add that source, and we'll come in here. So what I'm going to do at this point, I'm going to go ahead and close out my system admin client. I added all of the sources that I want for our layout. So we'll go back into the desktop client, which is where we can see our display. Let's actually go in and build a layout now. So I'll go ahead and I'll log out here just so you guys can see what it looks like to log into the desktop client. So the system that we want here, we want the inexchange.visibility.cloud. So that's the system you want to point to. So basically, just like anything, whenever you're logging into something, you're either pointing to a network, pointing to an IP address. In this case, you're pointing to a cloud database that you want to connect to. So I'll go ahead and log in. It'll take it just a second. I'll make sure that we can see our screen back here so we can see the changes that are being made. Okay, first thing I want to check, did all of our stuff get put in here? Yes, it did. The only thing I am not seeing in here is our IoT device. What happened to our IoT device? Oh, that is because, everybody, no one caught me. I actually put it in DOC instead of demo. So, but I can still see it right here. Okay, so let's go to our display. So I'm going to open up my display here. I can open up any of these that I want. I'm going to put all of this information. I'm going to build this layout on our Stillwater office site. So what you'll notice is we just are working with one screen here. But what I want to do, what I said that we were going to do in our demo is we're going to make this a 4x2 layout. So how do we do that? What we would do is we're going to utilize this grid system, and I'm going to turn on the grid, and I'm going to start building my layout. So what you can notice is, so if I put 4x2, 4 columns and 2 rows, I just built a 4x2 screen without having like 8 screens up on my wall. So the cool thing about this is, okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drag my image right here. So I've got my DOC image. What I'm going to do is I'm going to I want to put this one right here in this deal. So if I double click, it'll automatically fit to that size right there. Okay, I want to put the Activu site directly above the DOC because they are DOC people. It'll take it a second to hit that website. It is loading. It says that it's loading. We want to put our ERCOT prices dashboard right here, down here at the bottom. It may take a second for some of these to load. I'm going to put our ERCOT supply and demand. We'll give it a second. And then over on the course of this right side here, what I want to do is I actually want to break this up a little bit more. So what we can do is after all of these have been put together, I can actually go in and I can add the rest of these sources. I'm not sure why all of these are not wanting to load for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to grab some graphics just so you guys can see how I'm changing things. So I'm going to put an IoT image right here. It must just be taking some time to load some of those things. Let's see, some general graphics. Let's see, what graphics do I want to put in here? Let's see. Yeah, so I can put all of our ENX headers up here. ENX assets, ENX energy. You guys can kind of get the picture as to how to build what it is I'm trying to build. But, so over the course of this little bit right here, I'm actually going to change this one back to the Activu logo, since I've got one of those. Whoa, he's huge. But I can go in and I can resize, and boom, double click, and it'll fit perfectly into that grid that I built. Now, what if I want to make some things fit a little bit differently on these last 4? Okay, I can still change my grid and it won't change these 4 right here. So let's say I want more rows. Okay, so I'm going to put what is known as a widget on here. So I'm going to put a, we'll say, I'm going to put a timer on here. I'll say timer. So I'm going to put it for 5 minutes, and it'll pop up here shortly. So I've got a 5-minute timer. So hopefully I'll be done with this training video in the next 5 minutes. Next, I'm going to see if we can get the ENX site to pop up. So I can still just drag and drop, double click, and place whatever source that I want right there. I'm not sure, guys, why it's taking so long for our sites to load this morning. But the last thing I did want to show you guys was that network capture. So this is something that I think is really, really cool. All of those are located in our ENX folder or in Exchange folder. So what we have right here is personal desktop or all of these different images as well. For some reason, my laptop is not showing up here. But what you'd be able to do is you would be able to actually drag and place that DOC desktop on here. And what will happen is it'll actually place a deal of asking for permission on that desktop. So if I was able to actually pull my desktop over here, it would ask for my permission. I would select that I do give permission, and it would place whatever screen was on there. And I apologize, I'm not sure why it is not allowing me to do it right now. So what I'll do just for fun, to finish out our layout here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to place our ENX logo over the rest of these. So you can see on our back screen over here, I've got 3 minutes left on my timer, but I was able to create this view based upon the sources that we created. So let's go ahead and let's save this as a layout. So I can go up here to the top of my deal here, and I can click on this floppy disk, which is our save feature. I'm going to save this as a layout. So I'm going to call this STW because it's a Stillwater Office demo. Okay. So I'm going to add this. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to click on this eraser and I'm going to clear the wall. Okay. What's cool though, so I can turn the grid off so we can see all of it. What's cool though is if I go to my layouts and my temp, oh my gosh, I see this Stillwater demo right here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to double click it, and it'll go ahead and it will load whatever layout that is last saved under that name. So I can actually go in, I can grab old layouts. That's how we run scripts. That's how we build scripts, is based off of these saved layouts. I can go into whatever screen or display that I want, click on those layouts, and automatically load directly to those systems. So very, very cool software. Again, this is just kind of touching the tip of the iceberg of everything that we can do with this software, but I hope that this was something helpful that you guys can start to utilize and start using the software yourself, and really kind of helping me bring to life a lot of our clients' data. So if you ever have any questions about the Activu software or you want to learn more, I will be on site soon to be able to kind of walk through a couple other hardware pieces as well as some of the other software stuff that I couldn't cover today in this video. But hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and always, always, always reach out if you ever have any questions. All right, thanks guys.